I need to say something. Grace, you've been a disappointment your entire life. My father stood at my 70th birthday party, wine glass raised like he was giving a toast. My stepmother Patricia nodded solemnly. We tried, Richard. We really tried. My half-brother Stephen chimed in. At least the rest of us turned out successful. Then my father said it. I'm officially done. You're no longer my daughter. 60 guests gasped. I sat frozen at the head table. That's when I decided to tell them who actually paid for this entire party. My name's Grace. I'm 70 years old. I'm a retired office manager, a widow. My husband James died 12 years ago when he was only 60. My father Richard is 92. He's been married to Patricia for 45 years, since I was 25, right after my mother died. I have 2 half-siblings. Stephen's 43, works in sales. Michelle's 40, stay-at-home mom. I never had children. Worked my whole life, lived modestly in a small condo. To my family, I was always the boring one. No glamorous career, no kids, no drama. Just quiet. My father favored his second family openly. At least Stephen gave me grandchildren. At least Michelle married well. I spent 50 years trying to earn my father's respect. I never got it. I was excluded from family events, treated like an outsider at my own father's house. They never asked about my life, about James, about my career. I wasn't flashy or loud, but I had built something they couldn't see. Drop your location in the comments. I read everyone. I need to know someone else has felt invisible in their own family. I arrived at the country club that Saturday afternoon completely surprised. I hadn't planned a party. My best friend Diane was already there, looking as confused as I felt. Patricia met me at the entrance, all smiles. Surprised? Stephen and Michelle wanted to do something special for you. I was genuinely touched. They did this? Stephen appeared, smugness written all over his face. We figured 70 is a big one, even for you. The party was beautiful. Catered dinner, live jazz trio, elaborate floral centerpieces, about 60 guests. I walked through the room, shaking hands, accepting hugs. For the first time in years, I felt seen. During dinner, Patricia stood to give a toast. Grace has lived such a simple life. No husband anymore, no children, but she's family, and we take care of family. I shifted in my seat. Something felt off in her tone. Stephen raised his glass. Yeah, we wanted to show her what a real celebration looks like. Michelle laughed, a little too loud. Not everyone can plan parties like we can, Grace. This is how it's done. Then my father stood, 92 years old, frail, but somehow still commanding. I need to say something. I've been thinking about this a lot. I smiled nervously. Maybe this would be the moment. Maybe after all these years, he'd finally tell me he was proud. Grace, you've been a disappointment your entire life. The room went silent. My smile froze. Dad? What? You never gave me grandchildren. You worked some boring office job for 40 years. You let James die young and then just gave up. Patricia nodded like he was making perfect sense. We tried, Richard. We really tried to include her. Stephen stood, emboldened. At least the rest of us turned out successful. My father's voice shook with emotion. I'm officially done. You're no longer my daughter. I don't want you at family events anymore. Guests started murmuring. A few stood up, unsure what to do. Michelle spoke quietly, but her words cut deep. Dad, maybe this isn't the time. It's exactly the time, he interrupted. She needs to hear it. That's when I understood. They didn't throw this party to celebrate me. They threw it to humiliate me, to officially cut me off in front of everyone. Patricia smiled sweetly. We paid for this whole party to give you one last nice memory. You're welcome. My face burned. My hands shook. But I didn't cry, didn't yell. I just stood up and walked toward the exit. Halfway to the door, I stopped. 2 weeks before the party, Michelle had called. "We're doing a family portrait for Dad's 93rd birthday next month." "That sounds nice," I'd said. "When?" There was an awkward pause. "It's just immediate family. You understand? I'm his daughter. You know what I mean. Dad's real family. The ones he sees regularly." The words stung. "I visit him every month." "Patricia says it makes him uncomfortable. You remind him of Mom." "I'm his connection to Mom. That's not my fault." Michelle's voice turned dismissive. "Just let us have this, okay?" I'd agreed. Hurting, but silent like always. The betrayals kept coming. A week later, I took my father to his cardiology appointment, something I'd been doing for 5 years. Stephen and Patricia showed up unannounced. The doctor asked, "Who's been managing his medications?" "I have," I said. "I pick them up, organize the weekly pill box." Stephen cut me off. "We all help." The doctor looked at his chart. "Notes say Grace is the primary contact." Patricia's voice turned sharp. "That's because she has nothing else to do." Stephen nodded. "We have jobs, families. She's got time." "I'm retired," I said quietly. "That doesn't mean I have no life." Patricia turned to the doctor like I wasn't even there. She never had children, never understood real responsibility. The doctor looked uncomfortable. After the appointment, Stephen cornered me in the parking lot. "You know Dad doesn't actually want you doing all this, right?" "Then why doesn't he say so?" "Because you guilt him. You show up and remind him of his first wife, his old life. It's selfish." My father said nothing, just stared at his phone. Then came the worst call. A month before the party, Patricia called. "Richard needs to move to assisted living." I felt a spike of concern. "Is he okay?" "He's declining. We found a beautiful place. Very expensive." "How will you afford it?" "Well, we thought you might contribute." I was confused. "Contribute?" "You don't have kids, no spouse. You must have savings." "I live on a fixed income." Patricia's tone turned annoyed. "You worked for 40 years, Grace. Don't play poor." Stephen's voice joined conference call. "We're talking $8,000 a month. We figured you could cover half." "Half? That's $4,000 a month." Michelle's voice came through. "We have kids to put through college, Grace. You don't. Your money should go to family." "I am family," I said. Stephen's voice went cold. "Barely. But Dad's your father. Step up." My voice broke. "I need to think about it." "Don't think too long. We're moving him in 6 weeks." I hung up, shaking with rage. That night, I called Leonard, my late husband's best friend and my financial advisor. "Grace, you've been funding their lifestyle for a decade. It's time to stop." "But he's my father," I said, crying, "and he just asked you to pay for care he can afford himself. Wake up." That's when it hit me. They'd been using me for years. "Leonard, the party. Who's actually paying for that?" His voice went quiet. "You are. Through the trust account, like always." What they didn't know was who I really was. I wasn't just an office manager. I was director of operations at a major regional firm. My husband James and I invested aggressively in real estate in the 80s and 90s. When he died, he left me $1.8 million in life insurance and property. I sold our investment properties over the years, lived modestly, grew the portfolio. I was now worth over $3.5 million, and for 10 years I'd been anonymously paying for family expenses through a trust Leonard managed. My father's property taxes when he fell behind? I paid them. $12,000. Stephen's daughter's private school tuition when he couldn't afford it? I paid. $18,000. Michelle's medical bills after her surgery? I paid $25,000. They thought Patricia's inheritance covered everything, or that Richard's pension was bigger than it was. I never told them. I wanted to see if they'd love me without knowing. They didn't. I'd even set up my own birthday party through Leonard. One last chance to feel like family. He'd warned me. They'll take credit. They always do. I did it anyway. I thought maybe if I gave them a perfect party, they'd finally see me. Instead, they used it to disown me. I'd been invisible my whole life, funding their dreams while they mocked mine. Now I was going to make them see me. After I walked out of the party, I stood in the lobby, hands trembling. Diane followed me. "Grace, what are you going to do?" My voice came out steady. "I'm going back in." "Are you sure?" "I've been invisible for 70 years. Not anymore." Inside the ballroom, the family grew arrogant. I could hear Patricia through the door. "She's always been dramatic." Stephen's voice. "This is exactly why Dad's cutting her off. Too emotional." Michelle, softer but still cruel. "I feel bad, but he's right. She's never been part of this family." Someone asked, "Who paid for this party? It must have cost a fortune." Patricia sounded proud. "We did. Stephen, Michelle, and I. We wanted Grace to have one last nice memory." Stephen. "Cost us over $15,000, but family's worth it." I pulled out my phone, texted Leonard. "I need the receipts. All of them." His response came immediately. "On their way." "You sure about this?" I typed back. "I've never been more sure of anything." I walked back into the ballroom. The room went silent. Patricia stood, surprised. "Grace, I think it's best if you—" "I'm not leaving," I said calmly. "Not yet." My father looked tired. "I've said what I needed to say." "So have I, and everyone here is going to listen." Stephen stood up. "Grace, don't make this worse." I looked at him. Worse than being disowned at my own birthday? I don't think that's possible. I walked to the microphone at the front of the room. 60 pairs of eyes watched me. "I want to thank everyone for coming tonight." Patricia's voice turned nervous. "Grace, really, this isn't—" "Please sit down, Patricia." She sat, shocked. "My father just disowned me, in front of all of you." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. "He said I've been a disappointment, that I never gave him grandchildren, never had a real career." My father spoke up, defensive. "I stand by what I said." "I know you do. You always have." I pulled out my phone, held it up. "But there's something you don't know. Something none of you know." I looked directly at Stephen. "This party? The one you and Patricia said you paid for?" Stephen stood. "We did pay for it." "No, you didn't." I nodded to Leonard, who stood in the back. He walked forward with a folder. "I paid for it, every cent, through a trust my late husband and I established." Patricia's voice went shrill. "That's ridiculous." "The invoice is right here. $15,200, paid from the Grace M. Henderson Trust." I held up the receipt, showed it to nearby guests. Stephen's face went pale. "And that's not all I've paid for." Leonard handed me more papers. "Dad, remember 10 years ago when you couldn't pay your property taxes? $12,000 you didn't have?" My father stammered. "Patricia covered that." "No, I did." I showed the receipt. "Stephen, your daughter Alyssa's private school tuition, 4 years ago? $18,000? Stephen's voice cracked. I paid that." "No, I did." "Michelle, your surgery, the part insurance didn't cover. $25,000. Michelle's voice came out small. "Mom said Grandma's inheritance. There was no inheritance left. I paid it." I looked at Patricia. "For 10 years I've been covering your expenses, anonymously, because I thought, maybe if I helped, you'd love me." Patricia looked stunned. You've been funding your lifestyle, yes. My father's hands shook. You never told us. Would it have mattered? You disowned me tonight thinking I was poor and pathetic. I looked around the room. That's who you really are. All of you. Stephen's voice turned desperate. Grace, we didn't know. Exactly. You didn't know, and you treated me like garbage anyway. I took a breath. Effective immediately. The trust is closed. No more payments. You're on your own. Patricia stood. You can't do that. Richard's care facility. You'll figure it out. You're successful, remember? I looked at my father one last time. You wanted to disown me? Fine. I'm disowning all of you. I set the microphone down and walked out. This time, I didn't look back. Diane and I left together. In the car, I broke down crying, not from sadness, but release. You did it, Diane whispered. You really did it. I feel free. Over the next week, Stephen called repeatedly, left voicemails. We need to talk. Please. I blocked his number. Patricia sent a long email, half apology, half blame. I deleted it. Michelle showed up at my condo. I didn't answer the door. My father sent a handwritten letter. You've always been difficult. This just proves it. I threw it away without finishing it. I redirected my charitable giving. Established scholarships for first-generation college students. Funded a wing at the hospice where James died. Donated to widows' support networks. 6 months later, I learned my father moved to a cheaper facility. Stephen had to sell his boat. I felt no guilt. I spent 70 years trying to earn love from people who were never going to give it. I thought I needed to be quiet, to be generous, to disappear. But the moment I stood up and spoke my truth, I became visible for the first time, and I finally understood. I never needed their approval. I just needed my own. If you've ever been invisible in your own family, this one's for you. Where are you watching from? Drop it below. I always check. And your story matters to me. Hit subscribe if you know what it's like to give everything and get nothing back. Share your story in the comments. We're building a community of people who chose themselves. And remember, it's never too late to walk away from people who don't see your worth. Thanks for being here. I'll see you in the next one.